Hey there, it's Chris from Good Roads, and here's the deal. You want me to build a rope tow, I want me to build a rope tow, even Mother Nature wants me to build a rope tow. So we're gonna keep working on the rope tow. In my last video on this project, I had just wrapped up my top end, my powered end of my lift, my machine, and for this video, we're gonna need the other end, the part that goes at the bottom end of the hill, and some rope. So let's get started. To build the bottom end of my rope tow, I'm going to make it very simple for myself. I'm just going to be modifying this. This is a large static caster with an air-filled tire that I picked up at the hardware store. I'm going to be removing the tire and increasing the width of the rim with a 3D printed spacer. It's easy enough to do because the two sides of the rim are just bolted together. And you just grab some longer bolts, feed them through the print, and Bob's your uncle. Now I have a nice wide pulley that I don't have to worry about my rope slipping off of. With that done, it's time to take the lift over to the hill. And for this season, I'm just going to be setting it up in my front yard. It's a shorter run than the trails I have out back, but it's much easier to get to for some quick laps, especially when the snow is deep. Once the lift was in place, I dug some small trenches to get it level, then anchored it in place with these rebar hooks. Then I cleared the brush and branches from the path the rope is going to take.
Mikey, I think he likes it.
Next, I started setting up the bottom end of my rope tow. I dug a hole and sunk this metal pole into it, anchoring it in place with rocks and packing the dirt in tight.
Oh yeah, that'll do.
Once the pole was solid, I attached my pulley to it using these U-bolts. Now we need a rope. And I'm using this 1/2-inch braided rope I got from Home Depot. I went with a braided rope because with a twisted rope, there's a chance that the strands will twist apart and catch your hands or clothes in the line, which could be pretty dangerous. My intention was to splice the rope together beautifully. I even gave it a good effort, but I had the wrong kind of rope for that, and honestly, I was just confusing myself. I still don't even know if the machine's gonna work at this point, so I decided to opt for some easier, more temporary knots instead. With all my rope tied together and looped around the top and bottom end of my rope tow, it was time to fire it up for the first time. Okay, well, it's definitely moving the rope up the hill, but will it pull me?
Come on!
That's a negative, Captain. When I grabbed onto the rope, it was bogging the motor down. It just wasn't strong enough to pull me up the hill. And this, my friends, is why it took so long for me to get this video out, because I had a bunch of problems to solve. First up, we replaced the motor. The old motor is 2.5 horsepower peak, but only 1.5 continuous, so I upgraded to a 3 horsepower continuous motor, doubling the power. And I really hope this is enough, because it looks like you can't really get more than 3 horsepower from 120 volts AC, which is what we have at the wall here in the States. Next thing I want to do is replace all the speed control stuff. The old controller was just a little too mysterious black box for my tastes, and even outside of the strength of the motor, I was having trouble getting a constant output. So again, we turned to the YouTube motor guru Jeremy Felding for help. He has a video on DC speed control where he mentions that a cheap option is one of these AC speed controllers for industrial fans. It's got a power switch, a dial for speed, and is a nice neat package. And to convert the output from that speed controller to DC, we're going to use a cross-bridge rectifier. Now, I'd be lying if I said I understood what was going on here, but it works, so I'm just going to link you to Jeremy's video. Head on over there if you want a deep dive or other DC speed control options. The wiring for this is super straightforward. I took the 3-pronged plug from the old controller, stripped off the protective sleeve, and added some crimp connectors. This gets plugged into the output of the speed controller, and then the black and white wires get plugged onto the rectifier catty-corner to each other on the terminals marked AC. Then the positive and negative leads of the motor get attached to the other 2 terminals. Either way works because switching them around will just reverse the direction of the motor. Also, normally you'd want a little heat sink on the cross-bridge rectifier, but I wasn't too worried about it since this is just a test, and... man, it is cold. You're freezing. One last thing I needed to do, the oil on my gearbox was low, so I topped it off. And then it was time to fire it up. That should not be on yet. Oh, very well. Okay, power, speed control, and... it doesn't bog down. My belt's slipping a bit, but let's give this a shot. All right, not too shabby. Obviously we're running a little bit slow at the moment, but I think I can address that and my belt slippage issue by swapping out some of my pulleys and changing the gear ratio up a little bit. After that, I've got some cleanup to do. I want to house all the electronics in something nice and neat, probably 3D printed case of some kind. And I also want to add a safety shutoff switch, so I've got to figure that out. But the hard part is done. I've got a working rope tow. So, if you want to see me finish it off, put it through its paces, and then all of the other awesome DIY board sports stuff we do here on the channel, just go ahead and subscribe. If you've got questions or comments, leave them down below. I've had a lot of people ask for a parts list, and a lot of the parts that I've used have been scrounged. But I do have links for most of the major components down in the description. All of my gratitude to the fine folks who support over on Patreon. If you'd like to pitch in and keep the projects coming, there's a link down below. And as always, I love having you along for the ride. So until next time, I'll see you soon. Hat swipe. Hat swipe. That's what happens when you shoot a video that doesn't have any props and you forget that your outro is to hit the camera. You use what you got.